Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live. We're your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution of card breaking news, culture, manic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. We have been talking about this concept about it's not red versus blue, it's not left versus right, it's the party of orange versus the party of green. And it's interesting that predominant political candidates here in the United States on both sides of the aisle, on the Democratic side, you have RFK Jr., literally his speech at the Bitcoin 2023 conference was saying that he's going to protect the right for Bitcoiners to take self-custody. It's interesting on the other side, on the Republican side, in the second place for the presidential Republican candidacy is Ron DeSantis. And he released a meme, I would call it, because that's really what it is, an ad, you could say, better said. And it was called the Declaration of Economic Independence. And one of the tenets, or one of the things, and it was a list of 10 things that he's going to do if he gets elected president. Number 8, it was rein in the Federal Reserve. And in there's a specific section that focuses exactly, literally, it says word for word, I'm not even kidding, protect Bitcoin. So I think that's interesting how this is heating up. This isn't a phenomenon that's only happening in the United States. This is also happening in Canada. You have Poilievre, who is running against Justin Trudeau, and he's also against central bank digital currencies, and he's for Bitcoin. So I find that really interesting how this political debate is heating up. At the end of the day, these are politicians. I'm not a big fan of politicians. I don't trust politicians, but look, I'm a fan of this happening during the transitionary period from a fiat standard to a Bitcoin standard. I think the more people on our side, the better, especially with, what we know the other side is doing. On yesterday's episode, we covered the proposed bill, bipartisan bill sponsored by Senator Cynthia Lummis and Senator Warren, that would force validators, miners, wallet providers to KYC, which is freaking crazy. So, the more people we have on our side of the football, the better, in my opinion. And also, we have a very special guest today. We have the CEO and founder of Start9, Matt Hill. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming today. And I'm a big fan of Start9. I think they make some of the best nodes in the space. And you guys are all about that sovereign computing, which I'm a big fan of. I got myself, I think you rebranded it. It's not the Start9 Pro anymore. But I got one of the founder editions and I'm absolutely loving it. What's the rebrand called? What are you guys calling it nowadays?
The Pure.
The
Start9 Pure.
Start9 Pure. Yeah. And it's a workhorse. I think it runs on an i7. Is that correct?
The reason why we renamed it is because it doesn't actually pack the punch that you would expect a pro device to pack. So it is powerful. It's far more powerful than almost anything people are running Bitcoin nodes and personal servers on. But it's not the most modern chip. As you start talking about like AI applications, it doesn't have enough RAM. It's a good, powerful device, but we have plans for what we're going to call the Pro, and it's going to crush this thing from a performance standpoint. But this thing is unique in that it touts a 99.9% open software stack through to the firmware, right? There are no proprietary drivers for Wi-Fi or graphics cards or anything like that. It is a very pure device that is based on some of the work that Purism put into opening up the firmware and excluding the Intel management engine and stuff like that. So it's a privacy and security oriented device rather than a pro power device, even though it does pack a good punch. So we renamed it to the Pure.
Gotcha. So you're going to take even more of my money. Understand. Very looking forward to the new and what you're going to call it. Anyways, I see Opti laughing his ass off. What's up, man?
Oh, man. Doing good. Doing wonderful this morning. And shouts out to everyone on yesterday's show. You guys loved the lightning giveaway live. We handled it, but won't be happening again until I figure out exactly the kinks on it, because some of y'all ruin all the fun for the rest of us. But I'm excited for this one. Obviously, we've been seeing Ron DeSantis talk about CBDCs for a while now. Hopefully he can get that conversation going in all circles. And it's becoming very interesting that, the CBDC and Bitcoin narrative is becoming a point of contention for political candidates. And It's looking like it's going to be a crazy ride. And then we get to talk Start 9 all day, which is, I don't know. Nico's been getting me on, and I'm like, man, I really need to get one of these. These things are looking amazing. So I'm excited for this one. Nico, let's get into this.
It's going to be a great show. All right, everybody, no more delay. Let's jump straight into numbers. Let's do it.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, guys, and you can scan the QR code on your screen right now and take you directly to the Stamp Seed website. Don't put yourself in the position where you have to explain to your grandchildren why you lost your generational wealth because you stored your seed phrase on paper. Store your seed phrase on the titanium seed phrase storage kit available on Stamp Seed, and you can use the promo code simply to get yourself a major discount. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 29,250 sats per dollar, 3,419. Block height 801,530 blocks to halving 38,470. Halving estimate April 20th, 2024. Total Lightning Network capacity 4,691 Bitcoin. Capacity value 137 million US dollars. Realized monetary inflation 1.76%. The market capitalization is $568 billion with the B. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 4.38%. All right, moving on to the video that I want to talk about today. They're saying the quiet part out loud. Let's check this out. This is Ron DeSantis at a political rally.
It's a threat. In Florida, we've seen them talking about it, so I actually signed legislation where we don't recognize central bank digital currency. Now, Congress could override us on that, but the Fed unilaterally, I don't think they could override us on that, so we've protected Floridians. But as president, on day one, CBDC goes into the trash can. We're not going to allow it. And we are going to let Americans invest in things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. No one's forcing you to do it. If you want to do it, you can do it. Biden's war on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency will come to an end when I become president. It's a threat.
So, I mean, look, it's very, very interesting. It's not just Bitcoiners that are like hypothesizing and like that meme with the guy like pointing at the board with all the wires connected and stuff. Like, look what's going on. It's becoming apparent that Operation Choke Point 2.0 is not just some meme that Bitcoiners came up with on the internet. Like the moves by the current administration, whether it's the Custodia Bank with Caitlin Long, we had her on the show the other day. Like it's clear that in the eyes of this current administration, they don't see Bitcoin as money. They want to push forward the central bank digital currencies and look at the launch of the American version of the CBDC, which they say is not a CBDC, but it sure feels like a CBDC, which is the Fed now, right? And here is the Declaration of Economic Independence I was mentioning in the beginning of the show. And number 8, one of the things that he said, if he were to be elected president, he would block a CBDC and he would protect Bitcoin. He doesn't say crypto, he says Bitcoin by name. And of course, he's not just doing this out of the kindness of his heart. He's doing this because he's a politician. He wants to get elected. And his direct opponent, I would say, rather than Biden, really is RFK Jr. on the Democratic side. And he's been very vocal about supporting Bitcoin and being anti-CBDC. He had his speech at the Bitcoin conference that got a tremendous amount of press. And then he had another announcement, which he did on a podcast, where he would vow to Bitcoin. He would vow to back the dollar by Bitcoin, and he would exempt Bitcoin from taxes. Of course, I don't trust politicians, but it's just interesting how it's like kind of like this forcing function. Like one politician says something and the other one's like, yeah, I want to get those votes too. I support Bitcoin too. This is very interesting. I think that by, the end of the decade, I think that it'll become politically unviable to be against Bitcoin. That's my opinion. But again, never underestimate, these people and the lengths that they are willing to go to in order to maintain their privilege of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. So Matt, you're a builder. Is all of this stuff noise to you? What's going on in the sidelines? And I really want to focus. I wish we covered that on today's show, which is yesterday we had a very, very scary bill that came out. And in that bill, it basically said that they were going to force validators, and you could say validators or nodes, to KYC their customers. So that's very interesting, that wording that they used. So what's your take on that?
The first part or the validator part? Let's
everything. What's your take on everything?
I care deeply about politics. I read history. I understand and read about politics and economics, but I spend most of my time writing code. I am not up to date with every current event or which politician said what. I buy into the thesis of the sovereign individual, that technology is the primary driver of political change throughout history. And so I personally spend most of my time trying to create and innovate on technologies that forcibly push power to the edges of the political system, and thereby influence change from a layer beneath where these politicians are operating. So as I see people like Ron DeSantis or RFK talking about Bitcoin, I do not believe that this is coming from a place of them necessarily understanding or even caring, but from a place of necessity, right? Like the winds are changing and they are trying to say whatever they need to say to get votes. And their polling is telling them that these are the things that they need to say to get votes. And so it's working, right? Like, I don't believe them. I don't trust them, but that is proof that something is happening that is causing them to take this seriously, and not only to take it seriously, but to side with it, right? Bitcoin is forcing political change, not asking for it. And so what I get annoyed by is when I hear them say things like, we're going to let you trade in Bitcoin and stuff like that. And sure, I get why they're saying that, and I count that as a check mark in the win column, but also I'm like, fuck you, you're not going to let me do shit. We're going to do whatever we want, and you're going to go along with it because you have to, because technology makes you comply.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And we're big fans of the sovereign individual on Simply Bitcoin. We reference it at least once a week on the show. And I completely agree. And, you're just watching the state as they lose, they lose their control over society in a way. You're seeing them kind of like go through this denial phase where they're like, look, we'll let you do it. You know what? Actually, we're big fans of digital currencies too. We like CBDCs. We're supporters of CBDCs. Why don't you use that? So it's just interesting watching them squirm around. And in a way, I feel like they're panicking a little bit. Like they want this thing to go away, but it just won't go away.
That's correct. It's not going away. You cannot uninvent technology, and technology that empowers people doesn't want to be uninvented. People are going to use it. And it's great that it was designed the way that it was. That's what made Bitcoin so innovative, is that it really is fuck you money. And good luck trying to get validators to KYC people. I mean, it's silly that they, at this point, do not understand it well enough to refrain from saying such a silly phrase, right? Like, generally speaking, politicians try not to look foolish, right? They don't want to take hard lines against things that they can't enforce because it just makes them look silly, right? That's the one thing they always try not to do, is look silly. They can lie. They don't care if they're malicious, whatever, but they don't want to look foolish. And so that's going to make them look very foolish, right? If something like that were to come into practice, it will be undone overnight as they realize what a mistake they have made.
100%. And what I'm referencing, everybody, also is just to kind of show everybody what I'm referring to. It is the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act, which was included into this defense bill. And it included extend Bank Secrecy Act responsibilities, including KYC customer requirements to digital asset wallet providers, miners, validators, and other network participants that may act to validate, secure, or facilitate digital asset transactions. I agree with Matt 100%. I think that is unenforceable, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to try anyways. So Opti, what's your take? And then we'll move on to the news.
Yeah, so first, I think it's very interesting to hear DeSantis say what Bitcoiners have been saying for a while, that there is a war against Bitcoin coming from the Biden administration. And maybe it carries a little more weight because it's coming from the political class and not from, us fringe conspiracy theorists on Twitter or whatever you want to call us. But to Matt's point, I was going to say the same thing. Like, we don't need the president to let us do anything with Bitcoin. It's permissionless money and completely legal by constitutional standards. So it's nice to hear. And of course, I don't want friction in regards to Bitcoin. Like, make my life easier as a Bitcoiner. Would love to see it. But Honey Badger don't care. This is a global phenomenon, and America will continue to shoot themselves in the foot by fighting Bitcoin. And of course, as someone that lives in America, I don't want to see us continue down this path and would like to see people embrace Bitcoin. It really doesn't matter because of entrepreneurs like Matt out there that are building the freedom tools that will force the narrative. Like, they've lost control as far as I'm concerned, and now they're trying to pander to Bitcoiners. So on the one hand, just love to see it, and on the other hand, it's just like, I don't know, it just seems like lip service to me. But I mean, personally, I know, Nico, you're in Florida and you have different views, and we'd love to hear this conversation. I don't really think that DeSantis has a chance to win, but it's cool to have these conversations. It's cool to continue to echo this conversation that we talk about all the time. And I do find it interesting, like you said, Nico, that DeSantis is saying this after RFK has basically come out and used Bitcoin as one of his running points. So again, I think we've said this for a while now, that moving forward, Bitcoin will be a point of contention for all politicians out there, and they will have to have a stance on Bitcoin, whether they're CBDC or they are Bitcoiner. As we always say, Bitcoiner slavery. Bitcoin exposes all their incentives. So now we know where people stand. And obviously, hey, we don't trust politicians here, but it's nice to hear them talk about the things that we like. So let's just hope they're actually about what they say, or else it's just another politician lying to us.
I don't care what they say as long as they keep talking, because the longer they talk, the more time we have to build, and then it won't matter what they say or what they think. Right? It already doesn't. It already doesn't, but we're just hammering that deeper. Like, by the time they've come to some kind of consensus about what to do about Bitcoin, they're going to live in a Bitcoin standard. It's not up to them. We're moving way too fast.
100%.
Love it.
I 100% agree. Anyways, guys, before we move on to the news section, I want to give a shout out to the biggest Bitcoin conference on the face of the earth, Bitcoin 2024. Opti and I were there in Miami. We're going to be here in Nashville. The year of the halving, the Bitcoin conference is going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, July 25th through the 27th, 2024. You want to get your tickets now before prices go up. For a GA, it's $349. For an industry pass, it's $849. For a whale pass, it's $4,749. And you can use the promo code SIMPLY to get yourself 10% off tickets to Bitcoin 2024. All right, everybody, let's get to the news. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Daily News.
All right, I also want to give a shout out to the Orange Pill app. They are building the social layer for Bitcoin. The Bitcoin circular economy is coming, and this is where it starts. Within real life connections, find other Bitcoiners who live close to you, find plebs while you're traveling, or find nearby Bitcoin events. Plus, Orange Pill app recently enabled Zaps. You can zap your friends. You could zap events to help with the costs to organize your Bitcoin your next Bitcoin meetup. Scan the QR code on your screen right now, and you can download the Orange Pill app. And when you sign up with the QR code, you will get 10,000 free sats. And Opti and I appreciate all the messages and all the love that we're getting via the Orange Pill app. We appreciate you all. Anyways, today's news, I want to cover this absolutely hilarious post by our friends over If the Bitcoin Conference is the Freedom Conference, the WF is the Contillionaire Conference. And, they said a lot of the quiet parts out loud. And I think this is a testament to how much they fear Bitcoin, how much they really fear this change that is happening, the separation of money and state. I find it absolutely hilarious, and there's a lot of cope in this. So first, the headline for our audio listeners is EU unveils plans for digital euro, promising complete privacy. So it's just interesting, right? The digital euro that we're unveiling has privacy built into it. But if you still think I'm like, oh, Nico, maybe you're seeing things that are not there. Literally the first sentence of the article starts with, move over, crypto. Europe has moved one step closer to a digital euro. The European Commission has unveiled a legal framework that paves the way for the introduction of an electronic currency across the 20 member states that use the euro. And then they pitch it to you in these paragraphs, which I find absolutely hilarious. It goes on to say the European Central Bank is tasked with securing the nuts and bolts of the digital euro, which it says could complement cash and be launched as soon as 2027. So they're telling you a bunch of stuff, right? 3 things that they've said so far. This is going to have privacy built in. Don't worry, cash is still going to exist, even though, they're kind of doing things in the background that basically shows that they're trying to eliminate cash. At the same time, they're telling you, you don't need Bitcoin and crypto and all the shit coins. Like, yeah, we got you. We got you the digital euro. Anyways, it goes on to say, quote, with the digital euro, people will be able to pay in public money. I find it absolutely hilarious when central bankers and governments call their money public money. You're not able to audit what they're doing behind the scenes. You don't have a copy of the ledger. You do that with Bitcoin. What is more public to you? Government money that you can't audit, that you can't see the transaction on, or an open ledger like Bitcoin. Anyone could have a copy of the ledger in their homes if they're running their own node. What sounds more public to you? To me, it's obvious, but I think it's another case of projection. Anyways, it goes on to say, uniquely, they will be able to pay both online and offline. The digital currency would be stored in a digital wallet and can be used for online and offline payments, meaning they could be made from device to device without an internet connection, such as from a remote area or an underground car park. Quote, it would be safe and secure, instant and convenient, online and offline, offering more consumer choice alongside with private digital payment options such as cards and apps. Now, do they explain how they're going to do this? Absolutely not. But they want you to know that you don't need Bitcoin, that it's going to be private. And they're not going to get rid of cash either. That you should, don't trust, verify. You should trust, don't verify what they have to say. So I just find it absolutely hilarious. I think this is another testament, is another indication that we're absolutely winning. And it's just another cope. So Matt, what's your take on this? Do you find it as funny as we do?
I guess they can't do it. They can't build it. I mean, it won't work, right? Like the governments are not capable of innovating new technologies in a manner that would function at scale. They're just the technical expertise and effort to do this is not something they possess, and the free market will take care of that unless they are prepared to incite violence, unless they are prepared to use violence to force people to use an inferior product, which they are. But at the same time, there are consequences to that, right? They have to consider the trade-offs of whether or not they want to use violence against their own populations. But that's what it would take, because there's no way they're going to outcompete Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. So that's what it would take.
Yeah, but why do you think that, what like if we were to kind of like rationalize it, like why do you think they're coming out with these types of pieces, and they're trying to let everyone know, like, hey, we're still in control, the CBDCs are good, you could trust us. Like, what do you think the psychology is behind that? I think
they'll try out of hubris and just arrogance, but also anecdote. HTC back in 2020, maybe 2019, announced that they were coming out with a router that would run a Bitcoin node and wallet. And it was in every tech publication, right? It was in Wired magazine and TechCrunch and all the rest. And it was like, oh my God, HTC is entering the Bitcoin node world. And this was on my radar, of course, because at the time we were just starting up a personal server product that would run a Bitcoin node that we knew eventually would have router functionality. So we were like, okay, we're going to intersect with HTC. They're coming in with the router first and moving towards Bitcoin. We're coming in with kind of Bitcoin server first and moving towards router. And that never even got 2 inches off the ground. It turns out that they were doing market research, right? They made the announcement that they were coming out with the device in order to judge the demand and market response to the announcement. The announcement itself was market research. And then they explored the technical challenges, and they decided that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And in large part because they're such a large company, and it's very hard to spin up, these more fringe R&D speculative divisions with any degree of efficacy or competency. And so they just didn't try, right? And yet people still probably think that device ended up coming out, and it didn't. And I view this in the same light. This is just governments posturing, dreaming, seeing what will take, what won't take, what people will tolerate, what they won't tolerate. It's never going to happen. They might try, but it's just not going to work. They cannot pull this off.
Yeah. And when do you think this veneer of because I think a lot of people, and actually in the Sovereign Individual, they talk about this too, right? It's like the Wizard of Oz analogy, or so you pull the curtain and then people kind of see this fugazi, that the state isn't all powerful, that, you can have a money without the state, that you can, take self-custody of your money, right? All these ideas that I think a lot of people that have lived in the fiat matrix, the majority of their lives, have been preconditioned. And I never forget the conversation that we had, the last IRL. We were talking about it, and you said that this was going to be a multi-generational thing where people were going to have to unlearn this over the generations because of how conditioned they are in current society.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Government is really, really great at violence and expropriation, right? They're great at taking things that they did not build, using the threat or actual violence. And that I put totally within their capability. That's all they do well. So I could totally see government trying to co-opt something that others built, trying to control something that they built, right? Like I think it is far more probable that governments will attempt to control Bitcoin rather than invent some competing currency. I think that talking about inventing the competing currency might be part of the strategy of controlling Bitcoin. I don't know, but you know what? I don't know why what you were just talking about prompted this, but it came to mind, and so I'm going to say it. Everyone should read The Power Broker. It is one of the most underappreciated, unknown books ever, and it was probably the most riveting read of my life. If you look up reviews on this book, people will be like, oh my God, I couldn't get through it. It's so long. It's so droll. It's so economic and political based. And I'm like, that's exciting shit. That's really what gets my blood going. It is the most accurate, transparent, clear insight into the functioning of government and its corruption that I have ever seen. And it won the Pulitzer back in 1970. It's about the rise and fall of Robert Moses. This is the guy who basically built New York City. Basically, everything you see in New York City was the result of Robert Moses. All the bridges, all the tunnels, all the parks, everything was Robert Moses. And he was the epitome of the modern corrupt political crook. And he built a lot of shit, but it was on the backs of everyone, and it was built on theft and lies, and it's just brilliant, this book. It really opens your mind into how government works. That book combined with Sovereign Individual is why I'm so blah towards government, is because it's like, yes, these people are dangerous, but they are a one-trick pony. They do not do much well. They do one thing well, which is extortion, theft, and violence.
Yeah, and I completely agree, right? And it's under that veneer of violence that it gives that feeling. It's like, no, these people know what they're doing. But if you look at it from a historical context, right, anything that they get their hands on, they do it less efficiently than the free market. To use their words, the private market, right?
Yeah.
Or all the and name all the countless wars that happened, in the last 20 years and the last century. It all stems from government, all stems from the state, and then individuals and families are the victims of all that. I completely agree with you. I think Bitcoin is the solution to this. Bitcoin truly does fix this problem. Anyways, Opti, what's your take before we move on to the culture to talk about Start9?
Yeah, well, we started with the World Economic Forum, and they just continue to show that they're a joke, and it's completely laughable. Like, what was the headline? Complete privacy on the digital euro. Like, that, even if they could build it, that is not even their intention. But again, Bitcoin has forced the narrative, and they have to use, Bitcoin buzzwords to basically make it seem like, oh, hey, we're doing something similar. Come join us on our network. Like, trust us. We're the authority figures here. And it's just kind of echoing what Matt said. Like, nothing they can say or write can stop Bitcoin. The builders are building faster than the bureaucrats can write laws or even try to compete on the free market. And like Matt said, and I say it all the time as well, like, governments are incapable of competing on the free market. They've shown this time and time again. And anytime they do, they just get absolutely wrecked, and they have to either rebrand it or force the behavior. And I think this is kind of where we will end up going. We've seen the trend with CBDCs. Whether they roll it out or not, I'm sure when they try to, they will use the monopoly on violence to force people's behaviors. And it just shows that their product is inferior. And again, they wouldn't be talking about this if it wasn't for Bitcoin. And then again, just dunking on the World Economic Forum, like, it's becoming obsolete. Everything they write, it just, at least to me, just keeps showing how not only out of touch they are, but just how incapable of whatever they're trying to do. They can't do it. And they just write papers and like, hey guys, listen to us. But again, the Bitcoin node runners out there are the new World Economic Forum. Run a node, run a sovereign computer, don't trust, verify. Make sure you are checking up on your own money, and you don't need these middlemen. Like, we have the freedom tools to route around them, and nothing they can say or do will stop this, because honey badger don't care. This is a global phenomenon. And as much as they try to control it, the Streisand effect will just push this behavior out, and more people will wake up to the idea of, wow, maybe I need a money that is separated from the state, that is separated from the unproductive class, because it seems like they just want to control my behavior and steal from me. But I don't have to take this abuse anymore. Save in Bitcoin. Opt out of this stuff.
100%. Amen to that. All right, everybody, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the culture. We got a lot to talk about.
The Daily Culture.
Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. We love Swan because they incentivize self-custody and dollar cost averaging. What are you waiting for? Visit SwanBitcoin.com today. All right, guys, I also want to tell you about the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference, or festival, better said, festival on the West Coast, October 5th through the 6th in Los Angeles, California. Current speaker list includes Jimmy Song, Lynn Alden, Greg Foss, Corey Clipston, Preston Pish, Alex Gladstein, and many, many more. You don't want to miss this Bitcoin celebration. It is one of my favorite. You can use the promo code SIMPLY to get 21% off your tickets to the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. Anyways, we're going to talk about Start9 today, aren't we? But before we do that, I have to show this off. I got a limited edition Start9
Nice.
Pure, and I think the first 100 got like a special case thing. It's made by Madex. I just wanted to show it off. Anyways, Opti,
Soft flex.
I'm fanboying right now. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Let me tell you the story of those boxes. So we co-created this device with Purism. Purism's got some problems, and we're fairly excited to no longer be doing business with them. But in the early days, we were very excited, and we, ordered these devices through them, and basically white labeled their Librem Mini device as the Embassy Pro at the time. And they, in line with much of how they've done business, did not deliver the boxes. They didn't have boxes for these in time. What they had was their like Librem Mini boxes, and they were supposed to have our Embassy Pro boxes, and they had some issue with their box supplier and they couldn't get them in time. And we had a delivery date that we had promised our customers. And because Start9 honors its obligations and we wanted to get them out on time, we were in a bind. We didn't have boxes to ship these things in, and I didn't want to ship them in Librem mini boxes. So I called Madex and I said, what are you doing this weekend? And he was like, I don't know, nothing, man. I said, how about I fly you to San Diego, California, and give you 100-ish boxes for you to paint on in any way you see fit. You're not going to get a single opinion from me. Just make them cool. Paint the shit out of these Librem mini boxes so that people don't realize they're Librem mini boxes. And we'll do a special run of the first 100 units to surprise our customers and give them a custom work of art. And he immediately was just like, sure. So like on a plane, flies to California, shows up to the Pearson facility, grabs all these Librem mini boxes, goes to the beach, pulls out his spray paint cans, and just starts tearing these things up. And they came out freaking awesome. He did some really cool work. And anyway, it's a neat little story.
Yeah, dude, I had no idea, but yes, it is so cool. This is the only box I'm not going to throw away because I feel bad. I feel bad if I would throw it away. Anyways, all right. Here, Opti, do you want me to share my screen instead?
Yeah, whatever.
Should we do that? All right, let's do that. Start 9. Here we go.
But here, I guess first question for you, Matt. For those that don't know the difference, what is the difference between a Start 9 sovereign computer versus, say, running like a Raspberry Pi Bitcoin node?
So what Start 9 does is we make a novel Linux distro operating system, unlike any Linux distro that has ever existed. That is what we do. We sell hardware. Hardware isn't special. It's commoditized white label hardware, right? We have a light device that's based on a Raspberry Pi. We have what we call the Server 1, which is based on a Intel NUC. And then we have the Server Pure, which is based on the Purism Librem Mini. We did not make these devices. Yes, we do fulfillment. We assemble the devices, we put them in boxes, and we ship them. We do not mark them up much. It's not like we're making a killing on the hardware, but that is basically how we monetize our software. Because StartOS, the name of our operating system, is just a free download, right? The source code is on GitHub. You can compile it yourself. You can download it and you can install it on just about any machine under the sun. We have builds for x86, ARM, Raspberry Pi. You can even run it in a virtual machine on a Mac M1 or M2. You can run it in the cloud on a DigitalOcean droplet or whatever you want. And you're not doing business with us, right? We just make a free operating system. And then we sell commodity hardware with that operating system pre-installed. So what is unique about our operating system, to get to the heart of your question, like what is Start 9 doing differently than anyone has done? StartOS is the first ever and best ever, as a result of being first, but also because we think we're doing it really well, Linux distro that is purpose-built and optimized to enable a totally non-technical person to administer a personal server. So every other operating system basically in history, think Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, and all your various Linux distros from Ubuntu to Pop OS, and you name it, their graphical interfaces are always optimized for the user to run a personal computer, okay? If you want to do server things, right, which is what Linux is primarily used for, right? Like Linux is the server operating system. You have to get on the command line. Essentially, you have to pop the hood of the graphical interface, get underneath the graphical interface, use the command line to do systems administration work, which is fairly complex, high skill set. Sometimes requires years of training to be able to do it well. It involves, command line skills. It involves networking, understanding of network interfaces, configuring of files using Vim and Nano. It just is off limits to the vast majority of the human race. And so there has never been an operating system whose graphical interface was optimized for a totally non-technical person to run a server. Which is a massive statement. The reason why that doesn't exist is twofold. One is that there has never been a massive demand for people to run personal servers, right? Most people have been perfectly content outsourcing servers to Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and all the SaaS products that you use every day from your phone. In other words, it's not your computer. Most people have been perfectly fine over the last few decades using remote controls, which is what your phone and laptop are, to operate somebody else's computer, which is what a server is, right? That's where all the data processing is taking place. It's where all the data is being stored. It's where all the information is being relayed. Most people have been fine using remote controls for decades. And so there has never been this huge market demand for an operating system that enabled people to run a personal server. Secondly, building an operating system that enables a non-technical person to run a personal server is a massive, highly, highly difficult undertaking. There's a reason why companies pay $200K plus a year for people who have systems administration skills and experience to administer their servers. It's because it's really, really freaking hard to do. And so what we are trying to do is take a $200K plus a year job for two people at a company and dilute it down to buttons on a screen for grandma, which most people have told us is impossible. We're never going to be able to get it simple enough for a non-technical person to use. And on top of that, there isn't much market demand for it. We think they're wrong on all fronts. We think that there is a rapidly growing market demand for people to run a personal server, and I can get into those reasons if you'd like. And two, we actually are doing it. It is getting easier by the week. Non-technical people are running it, and with our forthcoming release, we're going to make a massive order of magnitude leap, a step function in improvement to the entire experience.
Yeah, and I have a bunch of questions, and I think that your website does an incredible job at kind of explaining, the difference between cloud computing and sovereign computing, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. And even with so-called private messaging server like apps like Signal, you're still sending the message through an intermediary, right? You have to send it. If I'm sending a message to Opti, it's from me to their server to Opti. You have to it's encrypted. You have to trust them. But this is completely different from my understanding, Matt, which is this whole idea with sovereign computing is that you're in control of everything. And the way that you describe it is when you run a private server, you're in control. You don't rely on others to process or store your data. In the sovereign computing paradigm, concerns over privacy, censorship, hacks, and fees practically disappear. And I think the perfect Trojan horse to get people to start caring about sovereign computing in the first place was Bitcoin, running your own node, right? I think once you kind of fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you start thinking look, if I'm using a light wallet, I'm trusting someone else's copy of the blockchain, and in the process, I'm doxing, my addresses and my balance. So then you kind of go. You reach this eventuality where you're just like, look, I'm gonna run my own copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. I'm gonna do it through Tor so I can interact with other people, and it's like this perfect Trojan horse as to why you should be running your own dedicated device. So I find this whole concept super interesting. Now you said something, and I wanted to ask you about it, which is this idea that the market for people running their own dedicated servers is going to increase over time. What makes you say that? Why are you so confident when you say that?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One is because Bitcoin is increasing in popularity, and along with Bitcoin's increase in popularity is a increased demand for running your own node. Bitcoin, you say, oh, looks like we have a glitch on our website there. Bitcoin, you say, was a Trojan horse. I think a better word for it is catalyst, right? Like Bitcoin gave people a reason to run a private server. There are tons of reasons, but Bitcoin was a very clear cut, no ambiguity reason to run a private server. Secondly, the Bitcoin social layer makes it taboo to not run a node. So there is this social pressure, peer pressure to run your own node, which is fantastic if you're trying to bootstrap a personal server revolution, because you can ride on this cultural phenomenon of you got to run your own node. You're not a real Bitcoiner unless you run your own node, and then be like, oh, personal servers running StartOS make it trivial to run your own node. And then boom, personal servers start to get adoption. Then what happens is once somebody has a personal server running a Bitcoin node, they go, what's all this other stuff I can do? Oh my God, I can do messaging that is not only end-to-end encrypted, but completely contained within a private network, that it's not using any third-party servers whatsoever, that I don't need to trust anyone to be running the code they say they're running, not to censor me, not to use metadata to create, graph profiles of who I'm talking to, et cetera, that you can do everything that Google Workspace enables, from document sharing and spreadsheets and email and all the rest, to you port that all over to Nextcloud on your own server. You can do group chats. So instead of using WhatsApp or Slack, you can use a self-hosted Matrix instance on your server, or a SimpleX instance on your server. Instead of using Twitter, you can use Nostr. Instead of using LastPass to store all of your passwords on somebody else's server, which get hacked constantly, store them on your own server. Take control of your digital life. Opt out of the cesspool that has become the hosted, custodial, third-party trusted internet. And so that's what we have found, is Bitcoiners are leading the charge of the personal server revolution without even really realizing that that's what they're doing. Bitcoin was an entry point, a gateway drug, a catalyst for a decentralized computing revolution that is bigger than Bitcoin. Right? Bitcoin is the most cherished, most beautiful hero of all of decentralized computing. It's the centerpiece of the next version of human society. But Bitcoin needs a decentralized computing ecosystem and infrastructure upon which to live. If Bitcoin is resigned to living on a single Amazon server in the future, then it's not Bitcoin anymore. It's just Bitcoin code as the next CBDC. So decentralized computing is infrastructure for Bitcoin. It is necessary for freedom. And Bitcoiners are spearheading that revolution sort of by default, simply by running a node and then discovering everything else that they can do. You did ask a question of why I think demand is going to grow. Answer number one, because Bitcoin is going to grow, and what I just described will happen at larger and larger scales. But secondly, the problems, the consequences, the costs of the current model of computing on this planet, aka cloud computing, are becoming increasingly apparent by the day. Okay. And I dilute them down to four. There are four problems with cloud computing. And when I say cloud computing, I mean the way humans on Earth use computers today, because that is predominantly how they use them. Number one is invasion of privacy. With cloud computing, you're not private. You are absolutely exposing information about yourself to some degree or another to third parties, right? And you are then subject to their surveillance, their collection of your data, they're selling it to other people, and that can be used for all sorts of malicious purposes, and is and has been. That's number one, and that's fairly well understood at this point, or at least becoming more understood very rapidly. Number two is censorship. Cloud computing is highly vulnerable to censorship. When everyone is using the same central servers, those servers decides who has a voice and who does not. They can do this algorithmically in a way that is not apparent, and they can do it overtly in the form of deplatforming. Censorship, also a rising concern, rapidly rising concern, especially over the last few years. Number three is fees. When you are using somebody else's server, you are paying them. Right? You are the product. If they are not charging you, they are monetizing you as an individual, primarily through data collection, data harvesting, and analytics and sales. If you opt out of that, then they're going to charge you subscriptions. So either way, you are paying for this service in one way or another. And those costs, like all costs of centralized systems, will continue to rise until they become extortionary in nature, because you are absolutely dependent on this software for your life. Without Google Workspace, you're not going to be able to do your spreadsheets. And without your spreadsheets, you can't do your job and you get fired and all the rest. So you're dependent. They know that. They will charge the shit out of you until you're broke. That's happening and will continue to rise over the coming years. And the last one, which is the one people don't think about a lot, but is extremely important, is the counterparty risk of honeypotting everyone's data onto central servers. Okay. When your data is on a server that has the data of 1 million other people or more, in some cases, tens of millions of people, that server is a glowing monument to be attacked by anyone who's looking to extract the wealth from it. Okay. In other words, if you were living in a city and that city was under siege, if it was under attack, if there was a war going on and people were trying to break into the city and rob all of its inhabitants, the best possible thing that you could do is leave. Get out of the city in which there is a battle taking place. Get out of the city that is under siege. When you put your information on a central server that's storing everyone's information, you should think about it like a city under siege. That a server is being attacked by outsiders, by insiders, and it is only a matter of time before there's a breach and you end up being civilian collateral damage in a war that you did not opt into and probably didn't even know was taking place. So when you run your own server, you are immune to this. Nobody's going to attack your server. It's not worth attacking. It has minimal amounts of data on it. It's extremely difficult to attack. They'd have to physically break into your house. They don't even know you have a personal server. It's 10 times safer to put your data on your own server than onto a Facebook server. So those are the 4 reasons. Those are the 4 problems with cloud computing. And as those problems become increasingly apparent, as invasion of privacy gets worse, as censorship gets worse, as costs rise, and as hacks increase, people will increasingly ask, what the hell is wrong with this system? And they will be looking for a way out. We will be waiting for them with open arms and an operating system that is perfectly understandable to them. And that's our growth strategy.
I mean, I absolutely love it. And I see the reason I see it is I'm going through you call it the catalyst, right? It's 100% true, right? Before Bitcoin, you didn't think like that. You didn't really kind of, think in a way where, and I think it's fundamentally because it's money, right? It's like, I'm not really going to trust someone else. And then that starts to make you think about a bunch of other stuff. And then Nostr pops up. And I know that you guys have a feature on the Start 9 that allows you to kind of run a Nostr node, or forgive me if I messed up the terminology, but
a relay.
There we go. So, and it's all about that, right? So I completely see where you're coming from, and I agree. Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
I'm at the point where you've been shilling it to me, Nico, and now I'm like, I need to get one so that we can, contain all of our own content on our own personal server. But for the people out there, Matt, you have 3 different versions on your website. You have the Server Lite, the Server 1, and the Server Pure. Maybe break it down for the people what the different selling points of each server is for the audience out there.
Yeah, happy to. So the Server Lite is based on the Raspberry Pi. It is perfectly adequate to do self-hosting for a limited number of services and number of people. So if you are an individual or a small family looking to run, 15 to 20 different open source services on your server, and it's only you and a couple of other people using it, it's going to be perfectly fine. It might be, it might not be the snappiest thing in the world, but you're not using this it's not like you're interacting with your server all day, every day, like you are with your phone or your laptop. Servers are designed to kind of run in the background. So you would only notice the slight degradation in performance when you are using it, which is acceptable to a lot of people. And it's a very cheap device, right? As an entry point, device, it's almost in the impulse buy range, which is what we want. We're not making a lot of money on this, obviously, right? Like Raspberry Pis, some Raspberry Pis on Amazon go for greater than $200, and we're selling a fully assembled Raspberry Pi with a micro SD card in a case with a speaker and our operating system pre-installed for $220. So it's a really great deal, and that's why you would go with that device. The mid-tier device is just more power. So it's an Intel NUC x86. It has double the RAM. It has way more storage. So the Lite is going to come in like a 128 to 256 micro SD card, and it runs entirely on the micro SD card. We do not recommend plugging an SSD into your Raspberry Pi. This is incredibly common in the greater Bitcoin ecosystem. You shouldn't do it. The Raspberry Pi is not designed to deliver adequate power to an external drive plugged into it. It just doesn't deliver the power needed, and it can lead to data corruption and unreliable behavior. If you want to run a full archival node, as opposed to a pruned node. You can run a pruned node on the light version. If you want to run a full archival node and keep the entire history of the Bitcoin blockchain, you're going to need the server 1 at least. And it comes in a 2 terabyte and 4 terabyte option. I actually think we have a 1, 2, and 4 terabyte options. It's way faster than the Raspberry Pi, blows it out of the water, has way more speed than the Raspberry Pi, and it's still very affordable, right? We sell it for cheaper than I think most other server and node platforms sell their devices, and it outperforms most of them, if not all of them. The Pure is really the top end device, right? It crushes the One in terms of performance. It, as I mentioned, has a open software stack all the way down to firmware. So both the Raspberry Pi and the Server 1 and pretty much any other device out there is going to have gigantic blobs of proprietary software on it that are closed source and could absolutely be backdoored and all the rest, and you just have no idea. The Pure has provably open software and firmware all the way down to the inner pieces of the chip. So it's not 100% because it's basically impossible to get to 100% without making your own chips. And we're still a few years away from making our own chips. But we'll get there. In the meantime, this is as open as it can get. And that matters to a lot of people. Plus, it's a beast of a machine and runs really, really fast. So that's, that's the Pure. And some people got to have it, like Nico there.
Yeah, man, I'm a huge fan. It's my daily driver. Big fan of it. And yeah, you guys are making some awesome products, and I'm really excited for for what's to come, and also the future of sovereign computing and more people taking back really control of their data, right? Because I think that's what it fundamentally comes down to. But anyways, everybody, let's get to the meme review. We got a lot of memes to review. Let's check it out.
The Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Kaboomracks. I get this question all the time. Nico, where should I buy Bitcoin miners? The answer is Kaboomracks. It's the best place to buy Bitcoin miners. That's where you're going to find the best deals and the best prices. Start your mining utopia today. To check out their racks, you got to go to t.me/Kaboomracks. Join their Telegram group and start your mining journey today. Kaboomracks. Kaboom.
All right, guys, this is the meme review where you guys send us memes, tag me on Twitter at simplybitcointv, or drop them in our Telegram group, t.me/simplybitcoin. Tweet to the bullets, memes are the artillery. We are in an information war, guys. And as today is showing, you want to protect your information, but also propagate the memes so that more people understand what is going on in the world today. Anyways, the first meme is by our boy, the BTC therapist, and it goes, trillions are coming, hashtag BTC. And you can see a picture here, and it goes, Bitcoin, it's early. And, we got some numbers here at the bottom. We have the Bitcoin logo at 600 billion, the market cap. We have the Apple logo at 300 trillion, their market cap. We have BlackRock at 10 trillion. We have the United States at 25 trillion. And then we have the globe, the entire world, at 900 trillion. And you guys still don't understand that you're early. Can't make it up. Anyways, this next meme is by Maxie's Club. It says 476 to you. And we got Maxie's passing a note to a noob. We're going to say a noob, but it says absolutely everyone, and they're reading, what's this book again? The Internet of Money. And they're passing them a note. Looks like a fortune cookie. And it says, you don't have enough Bitcoin. Keep stacking. Okay, this next one. You guys know me. I originally was a philosopher, so I love Plato and I love the allegory of the cave. And we got Toxic Bitcoiner over here, and he goes, the shitcoiner's cave. And we got the Chad Bitcoiner over here, the Chad Pepe Bitcoiner with the Bitcoin logo and 21 million tattooed on his chest, and the Bitcoin sun. And in the cave is the shitcoiner looking at XRP and Ethereum, and he thinks he's so smart. And then they got the flame, the shadows, which is the shitcoin. And we get yelled at for telling you guys to unplug, get out of the cave, because your shit coins are not going to make it. Okay, this next meme is by Lena Sisha, and she just goes, oh no. And we got a I'm going to say a noob. This is a little hodler memes, but we got a noob here and it's getting, it's falling for the shitcoin propaganda. And it goes, I made money trading and so can you. And look, he looks so cool. It looks like Richard Hart, all jazzed up in his Louis Vuitton. And the guy's like, yeah, man, we're going to get rich. And then he opens a trade and it goes completely black and he gets rug pulled and he just goes, oh no. And look, he's not even living in a house anymore. Do not lose your shirt. Just hodls. Stay humble, stack sats, stay solvent. This is the way. All right, this next one is by Hodl. And I don't know where he got this picture of, but it's pretty hilarious. And we got a chart here, the 10-year yield, and it's going to zero, obviously. But Hodl's tweet here goes, imagine if the height of core contributors affected Bitcoin supply issuance. And we got the height of the chair of the Fed. We got Paul Volcker, Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen there, and it's getting shorter as it goes to the right. But now we have Jay Powell. Will this make a difference on the monetary policy? Who knows? Everything seems to make a difference on the fiat monetary policy, but we know Bitcoin's monetary policy. Okay, this next one is by, I don't know how to say your name, but bro, it's Barianate80. And we got a laser-eyed Bitcoiner in the desert looking for water, and they come up on a desk, someone passing out water, and it says, Bitcoin Cash, and the guy keeps walking past because who wants that trash? I don't even want your water, bro. Okay, and the last one is by Sailor. Billionaires making memes, gotta love it. And he goes, hashtag Bitcoin is the light at the end of the tunnel. And we got this cool AI picture of a Bitcoin in an orange tunnel with Bitcoin at the very end. Bitcoin is the way, guys. Stack sats, stay humble, stay solvent. This is the way. Protect yourself through the great transition that we find ourselves in. Drop your meme review score in the chat, and we will cover ours live. Nico, you go first. You go first today.
I'm going to give it, in Bitcoin We Trust, Lucio Paletti sticker. Boom. All right, that's my score. What about you, Opti?
I give it the BK bucket hat and khaki today.
Oof. Okay, and Matt, what would you give the score? What would you give those memes?
I give it this one.
Is that a Madex dollar?
That is a Madex 100.
Oof.
Amazing. Sick. Very cool. All right, ladies and gents, please drop your scores in the live chat and we will get to them. There's a bit of, first one by Rave Elevator. We got Fitch's United States credit downgrade AAA to AA plus. Next one by Skip On Down the Road. Meme score 1 million. I felt a great disturbance in the farce, as if millions of Hexican voices suddenly cried in terror or suddenly disappeared. That is hilarious. All right. Next one by Elaine. More WEF FUD Fed BS equals more Bitcoiners. I love that. Next one by UTXO. I give the memes an allergy to caves. An allergy. All right. Narwhal Tacos. Bitcoiners don't ask for handouts. We stay for the signal or we leave. All right. Next one is by Apollo 21. My Synergy rack that wishes it could run a full Bitcoin node. Next one by Bitcoin for Canadians. I give the memes Richard Hart, Louis Vuitton prison jumpsuit collection. All right. Are we buzzing it, Opti?
Yes. Hold on. One more.
Okay, one more. Steve, orange tunnel light with orange man in view. All right. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into Simply Bitcoin Live today. We appreciate you all. Thank you guys for coming. We want to thank our very special guest, Matt, CEO of Start9. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. We put your stuff on screen where people could find you, but why don't you tell our audio listeners?
We're on Twitter at Start9 Labs. Our website is start9.com.
Awesome. All right, Matt. So why don't you hang out backstage for a second while I wrap up the show? Guys, thank you so much for tuning into Simply Bitcoin Live. We really appreciate you all. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value, and share this content. And tune into our Twitter Spaces, which we co-host with our friends over at Swan Bitcoin. Best place to build our Bitcoin stack, your Bitcoin stack. And you can, it's going on until 2 p.m. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.